Hello and welcome to Tech Talk number 19, Multi-tenancy and Data Security. I'm Ernesto Ungaro, Tech Talks host, so I've done most of the Tech Talks before. And I have a very special guest today. His name is Guillaume Autier. He is a longtime Jaspersoft guru, many years as a sales engineer, as a consultant, and now manager of the professional services group for TIBCO Jaspersoft in EMEA. So welcome, Guillaume.
Hello everyone. Hello Ernesto. Nice to meet you.
Perfect. So the subject today is multi-tenancy and data security. So it's a perfect subject for Jaspersoft, which is all about embedded reporting and analytics. Multi-tenancy is something that allows you to use one instance of Jaspersoft to share between all of your clients. And of course with that comes the idea that they can't see other clients' data. And so this entire show is about, what that is, explaining multi-tenancy and security, what we have inside of Jaspersoft. You're going to get two demos, one demo using Jaspersoft Studio and row-level security, and another demo using domains. So without further ado, we'll get going on the presentation. So column level security. This one we actually won't talk about too much, but it's important to just describe it, just because you'll see it around the documentation. Column level is you have a report like the one that I'm showing here, name, store, and salary, and you want to block out a particular column by a user role, an attribute, or even an organization ID. So some users get to see that column, other users do not. Row level security is a little bit more interesting. You've got a report like this one. Let's say that I can see all of the stores. You can see store 11, 24, 7, 9. The idea behind this row-level security is that depending on who you are, we might not show particular rows, and those would be restricted by usually tenant or an attribute ID. Okay, so we'll explain a little bit now about what we have as far as organizations, roles, users, and attributes. So at the topmost level, we have organizations. Jaspersoft by default comes with one organization called Organization 1. If you're on the community, there's no concept of multi-tenancy, so this may not necessarily apply. You can have as many as you'd like. You can have them nested inside of each other. And right below organizations is the concept of roles. So roles can span organizations. So I could create a role that's kind of system-wide, or I can create a role that's specific to that organization. And below there, you have an object called a user. Users can only belong to one organization, unless, of course, they're a special guy called the super user. And he can sort of manage all the organizations in the system. That's the only one that could span that. Otherwise, you have to belong to an organization, and you will get roles assigned to you. Like, for example, you have role user. That's kind of a mandatory role, but then you might create some roles on top of that. Finally, users can have attributes assigned. So I might have an attribute that shows me the country. So say I belong to the organization Coca-Cola, and I manage the country of Ireland. That might be a place where I store attributes, and the name of the company would be stored as an organization, and say I'm an executive for the company, that would be stored in a role. Okay, we have other tech talks that kind of dive into these subjects as well, like the Tech Talk number 1 is about how the repository works and kind of goes into a little bit more detail there. So we can have a quick look on Jasper Reports Server about organizations, roles, users, and attributes. So I will pop that open for 1 second. Okay, so we have Jasper Reports Server. I'm going to go ahead and log in as that super user. I can go and I can manage here and click organizations. And you can see that I have right now one organization called Organization 1 under the root organization. Remember I said we can nest organizations, so I could create another organization at the root level, or if I clicked here, I would be creating one underneath. So let's add a root level organization. We'll call it demo. When I do that, you'll notice that we have two now. I've got a number of roles, so I can, like I said, I can create organization-specific roles. If I click there, I could add a role called Role Executive. And you see that that role now belongs to demo. The other roles are not, they're not organization-specific. Okay. Then, if I go to manage users, I can create a new user. We'll call him demo user Tech Talk. So I add him, I can edit him, and I've got some roles available. So I've got role executive available. I've got also the idea of attributes. So that's the lowermost thing is an attribute, and I could create one called country, like I said, and I would give it an attribute value of Ireland. So Guillaume in demo 1 is actually going to show us how this whole thing actually works in a live demo with some data. That was just to show you what's available there for management. So just flip back to the slides. Okay. So let's go into the 4 types of multi-tenancy. So these are not types by a textbook, and that if you Google type 0 multi-tenancy, you probably won't find anything. These are just some we kind of came up with to try to explain it for this presentation. So type 0 is no multi-tenancy. You're not using the multi-tenant feature. That means that for every one of your customers, you have one installation of Jaspersoft, and nothing is shared. There's no shared database. There's no shared anything. There are some combinations of this that we'll talk about later. But let's talk about type 1. So type 1 is when you separate your databases. So you have one Jaspersoft installation with a separate physical database per customer. So what we're doing here is, depending on who you are, we want to be able to route you to your data where you're storing your customer's information. So what you're going to do here is parameterizing the host name of the JDBC URL. Now this is not a feature that comes out of the box where you just, it requires configuration. It's going to require some customization, and the reason for that is the logic to choose which host name is going to be very application specific, and it's hard to write something that's completely generic to handle this type of multi-tenancy. The next one is you're sharing one database, so it differs from this one in that you don't have 3, you have 1, but you're changing the schema per customer. So if I show you the JDBC URL now, we are parameterizing this part here where it's the name of the schema. Again, this one's going to require some custom logic. How do I get to choose that? And so that requires some customization of the product. We don't mean, 6 weeks of consultants in your office working on this, but it means that out of the box it doesn't do this trick. Then we have type 3. So this is a shared database. So one database, a shared schema, and then you have separate tables per customers. So I hate when I run into this one out in the field. It's not the cleanest one, because what you're having to do is you're creating a table with some naming convention, in this case customer 01, customer 02. And what you're doing is you're parameterizing somewhere in like the from when you're doing a SQL query. And this works with reports made in Jaspersoft Studio. You're going to need some custom logic when you're working with domains if you're using this multi-tenancy type. Okay, and the last one, and this is where after this we'll actually switch to Guillaume. So type 4, shared database, shared schema, and shared tables. And this is the one that we're really going to focus on for the rest of the presentation. So one instance of Jaspersoft, one database, and say one table. And you have a customer ID in that table. Customer ID 01 gives you sales of 20. Customer ID 02 gives you 34. So you're parameterizing the where clause, where the customer ID equals 01. And this is fully supported within Jaspersoft. This is what we kind of built into the entire product, and it's what we see most commonly out in the field from the other types of multi-tenancy. Okay, so with that, just switch over to Guillaume's presentation.
Thank you for that, Ernesto.
Perfect.
So the multi-tenancy feature, this is something that comes with the Enterprise Edition of Jasper Report Server. Please contact your sales representative if you want to know more about the package. This feature gives, for each organization, you need to understand that each organization from the repository perspective is a slice of this repository. It's like having a folder and a subfolder for the organization, and you see only what's inside this folder. An organization can have their own roles, users, and themes. So here down below you have a little screen that simply shows 2 organizations, and each of them have their own set of colors. This is important, for example, if you're building software as a service applications and you intend to use Jasper Report Server for that, you can give a specific look and feel to each of your organization without having to host multiple servers, and that's the beauty of the multi-tenancy, I must say. And as Ernesto said, you can nest organizations. So an organization can contain as many sub-organizations you want if it makes sense for the way you have described your user. Just a side note on that, if you use also LDAP, this could also be a way to reproduce an LDAP structure inside your organization structure. And finally, you have the public folder. The public folder is something extremely important because it allows you to share resources between tenants. And this is a very, very common way for software as a service provider. They want to provide common resources, and they don't want to rewrite and reinvent the wheel for each of their customers. So they use the public folder for shared resources, and they use techniques as the one that we are going to explain you in a couple of minutes to segregate data. Next one is when the multi-tenancy feature is required. So when you need to have the multi-tenancy, you may want to restrict data and objects between customer. Typically, you don't want the customer A to see the data of the customer B. And also, maybe customer A have different report set and different report layouts than the customer B. And maybe this is customer specific and it doesn't have to be shared. This is one usage of the multi-tenancy for that. There is walls, I must say, between organizations. If you belong to organization A, you don't see the data of organization B. So that's the second. Your customer will need custom report. Every customer will not have the exact same immutable reports, what I just explained. Some customer wants also to create their own reports and view. Also in Jaspersoft, you have the ability to create reports and view, either using Jaspersoft Studio or using the ad hoc interface. And maybe your customer will want to save their own reports and share their own set of reports without sharing them with other customers, for example. And also, another way to customize reports is we have interactive components inside our library. I'm thinking about the table component, for example. And you have also the ability to change a table, change some size of the columns, hide some columns, do some conditional formattings. And maybe your customer wants to keep those changes and use parameters for themselves and not share them with the other tenants of your system. So when you have some of those conditions applied, or all of them, then it's a good fit for multi-tenancy, and this is why we have created this feature. So first of all, we need. I would like to show you a little bit how it works. And if you're familiar with Jaspersoft Studio and creating reports, it's absolutely not difficult to do. So let's take the example of a supermarket chain, and they want to provide for their vendors some simple reporting. For example, a company called Bravo produce and sells soups in all their stores, and they want the supermarket chains wants to provide this Bravo company a report so they could look at their sales. So first of all, we're going to have a look at the final result, and we will dig out in how to do that. So I'm going to connect to an organization called Bravo, and I will be just one user of this company. Here it is. I go on the repository. So the report is on the public folder. It's under the sample folder as well. It's called demo report. So it's shared across the organization. And here I can see the sales for the company called Bravo. Why? Because I was connected as the company Bravo before. So here is the report. It shows all the Bravo product. Now I'm going to log out, and I'm going to log out to another organization. Here it is. And this organization is called ADG. It's another brand I have. And I'm going to be the Jasper admin of this organization. I go on the repository, and I am on the public folder. So I can see exactly the same things. And here in the sample folder, I still have the same demo report. That's exactly the same object, and this is important to understand. If I click on this one, then I see it's the same report, but this report is now understanding that I am on the ADG, and he's filtering the product only for myself. And there is no way for the user to change the fact that it's for ADG. So this is very secured, and for the report production, it's easy because I just have one report to produce. So since we know what we are going to do, let's have a look on how it works from the studio standpoint. Here is the studio. So in order to be short, I didn't force you to look at all the steps in order to make this simple table. I'm just using the table component. What I'm going to tell you is what you need to go from a generic report to a report that is capable of understanding which tenant the user belongs to and filter the data according to this tenant. So first of all, you need to understand that when you use Jaspersoft have the feature of having multiple users. It has been built for that. And it contains some predefined parameters that you can easily use in reports. So I'm talking about the tenant, but there is also other attributes from the user you can grab. For example, the username, the roles of the users, and other user attributes. I'm going to give you after the demo a list of all the parameters you can potentially use. So I'm going to use a predefined parameters that is recognized by the server that is called logged-in tenant user. So for that, I'm going to create a parameter like any parameter you will have on the studio, and I will take care of giving the appropriate name so it will be recognized by the server. So I call it logged-in user. Well, it's already typed before, so he remembers that. Logged-in user tenant ID. This will return a string. On the documentation, you can find those parameters and what type they are using. So from the documentation, I know that this return a string. You can use is for prompting or not. It's not mandatory to check this box. It's just more convenient if I want to test the report inside the studio to leave it for prompting. And that's it. I've got this parameter, and now I can use it as any parameter I have. So for example, here I will change a little bit the layout, and I will add sales monitoring. So I'm going to add the name of the company. So here, didn't save my variable. Why it's not there? Console, sorry. It should be there.
I think it's just ordered in a different way.
Okay. Thank you, Ernesto. Hopefully you're here to help me. Parameter. Yes, it's ordered a different way. It was there since the beginning. Sorry about that. But now you can see this is live. There it is. So it will display the logged-in tenant ID plus sales monitoring. But not only on text field, I also want to have that inside my query in order to add simply a where clause and use that. So I will go on the dataset of my table, and I will show the query. So this is a very simple query. I'm just going to add a where clause here, and I will say where. So I'm going to test the brand name. So the brand name is here. Just make some copy paste. Equals, and I'm going to set the parameter again and hope I will find it this time alone without the help of Ernesto. And here it's at the end. Here. So that's it. And as I said, you are responsible of the query, and you can use this parameter like any parameter. So if you used to filter query using multiple parameters, simply consider those parameters as new ones. I click on OK. So now my dataset is filtered. I just ensure that everything is OK. I save my report, and now I can simply publish it. There is nothing additional to do for that. So I go to the server, I go to the public folder, and I simply create a new report unit. I'll give it a name, so demo tech talk 19. Next, I will use a resource that I will download from the workspace. It's called demo tenant ID. And I click on finish. Next, and I'm simply selecting a data source from the repository. So here the data source is called FoodMart, but as this is published in the public folder and as this is supposed to be shared across organization, I also have to take care of selecting a database that is also registered inside the public folder. So I have no problem of dependency. And here is one, this FoodMart data source in the I use for my reports. Then I click on next, and well, there is no controls layout I want, no specific GSP I want for the controls, so it's okay, finished. And here it is. So you can test it. Here I have I'm connected here with the organization 1. Which is a bad name for a brand because I have no brand that is called like that. So here I'm simply going to edit the connection and here change the organization name to ADG, for example. So I can test the connection. This is successful. Click on finish. So it will refresh. And here you can see that Jaspersoft Studio react to the fact I'm switching to another organization, and the folder structure is no different. Anyway, I've got the public folder. Here I've got this one, and now I will run this report. And here, ADG sales monitoring. So it works. So
That's
here,
awesome.
here, thank you very much.
I'll say something for kind of some newer users because I did get this question very recently. And it was, hey, I want to preview why, the security's not working when I do a preview locally. Jaspersoft Studio doesn't really have the concept of usernames and passwords. So I don't know if you just want to clarify that, just another word on that, if you could, Guillaume.
Well, yes, the studio is a separate tool from the server, so it doesn't have all the security system that the server have. So remember, for example, when I mentioned that very quickly when I said logged in user tenant ID. Here I said that this parameter have to use is for prompting. So if I want to click on preview, it will work, but then I will need to type the brand. So here, for example, I will type Bravo just to have another result. It will work, but for Jaspersoft Studio, this parameter is just a parameter amongst other. It's not automatic. While in the server will recognize this is logged in user tenant ID, and it will automatically fill that with the user. So the only way you can test the security from the server standpoint, as the server will do it, is to preview the report the way I initially did, which means I publish it on the server, that I'm going to show it again. On the server, you can edit the connection, so you can easily change the organization, the username, and the password. And if the connection test failed, that means that you have something wrong in your credentials, but if it succeeds, it means that you have the correct username and password. And from that, you can search for your report, right-click, and run the report unit. And this is a convenient way to test your report from the studio without having to log to the server all the time. So you stay in your development environment, and you can still do something if you have to. So that's it. Next things I wanted to show you is let's go back from the slides. Just to make a little recap. I know I've probably been a little bit fast. So here you can make parameter substitution in SQL query. So this example, for example, will tell you if you have the field store city that maybe you want to use an attribute instead of the tenant ID. So the advantage of the attributes is that you can have multiple values on them. So let's say you have access to the brand ADG or Bravo, but you can see only the sales in particular city, then you can list and map into the user object the different cities. So I can show that directly if we search from some users. Here I've got Joe user IDG. I can edit this user, and here you can see the attributes. So here I can create an attribute called cities, and then say that you want to have Paris, London, some Cisco, whatever. And then you can add as many parameters you want, and of course parameter could be synchronized if you use single sign-on and third-party authentication. This is also something you can grab from your user repository already. You're not forced to use that attribute panel. It's just for the demo. Okay, and you can also do some parameter substitution in other query languages. SQL is not the only query language we have, and here is an example for XPath, but we can find as many as we want for parameters. So as I said, here is a little list of all the session parameters that you can use inside a report, or even if you create input controls, and if you use queries to populate the values of the input controls, this understand parameters, and this understand also session parameters. So you can use your session parameters as well to filter the result of your input control. It works exactly the same way. And here you've got login user, username, full name, all that list. This is documented in the Ultimate guide as well, so you can have the reference, and the guide will tell you, well, for example, roles will return you collections, and the attribute value will return you, for example, here, it will return you a string, the username will return a string, etc., etc. So go to the documentation, there's plenty of useful information about this. Here it is. So let's go for the second demo. We do not only provide reports in the server, but we also have domains, and domains are great for data exploration. There have been already some tech talks about domains. I'm not going to cover that, but one of the very interesting features of domain is the domain security. So the domain security is an optional object that are attached to the domain, and you can, with that, create row and column level security. So the domain security indeed is a file in an XML format that is added to the domain. So you can limit the data by anything the session can return you. So by name, by group or whole organization, profile attributes, anything. And the security is automatically applied to the currently logged in user. So if you are a Jasper admin, you will see probably a different result that if you have, for example, California user. So those two examples are already exist in the sample folder. So you can use it. It's called the supermap domain. So let's go quickly to show a very simple example we have done. So I'm going to log out from here, and I'm not in the brand IDG anymore. I'm going to be on the organization one. I will be just Jasper admin. And here, what I'm going to show you a view that have been created using a domain, and this domain have security. So we'll look at the domain a little bit after that in order to show you the security. So here I've got an ad hoc view that uses this domain. This view is a simple view that shows here the different categories of products. So it's a breakdown of the sales you have by time every month, and this is for every brand you may have access to. So here we just said that organization can see every brand. There is no segregation among brands. And here I can see product for food, product for non-consumable, product from drink, and here I can change the the brands I'm going to use. So here I just select some of them. So DG, Atomic, Best. I apply that, and here from my results I only have non-consumable and food, and then I can drill down in order to see the breakdown by brand name if I want. So here I've got the 4 brands, and then I can see the result of them. So the good thing of domains is because they contain the security inside of that. Any object I will create from the domain will inherit the security. I don't have to rewrite and reinvent the wheel anytime. Just to show this how the security works, I'm going to log out from organization 1, and I will log in again to the organization called Bravo, for example. Bravo, I will be Jasper admin, and I can build a new ad hoc view from this sales domain that have the security. I'm going to pick up data, so I'm going to pick up every field, and I'm going to create a chart. And here I'm going to take, let's say, the brand name and product name in categories, and here in rows I'm going to take the store sales. I'm just going to change the chart type to have a dual layer pie, and just remove that there. And here I can see the brand Bravo only, and then all the sub brand for Bravo. So this is already secured for me, and that's it for the security inside using a domain. So of course I can look at the category sales view, and here you can see that I have only one brand here, and only the brand Bravo in the filter as well. So that's.
So I have a hard question for you, Guillaume.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if I save this view? I'm in one organization, and I save it in the public folder,
mm-hmm.
and somebody else comes in from another organization. Will it then apply the correct?
Yeah, it will apply the correct. Yeah. Let's do some change in order to illustrate that. So here I will change the chart type, and I will use pie for bar chart instead of it. I think that's just enough to show a change. And here I will maybe go on the product categories instead. So here you can see all the product categories. Let's save that, okay? And I save that in a public folder. Let's call it category sales 2. If I log in as the brand name ADG, by the way, a shortcut here, you can see organization ID. Here I will simply type organization IDG. There it is. So now I can connect in the context of this organization. This is useful if you don't want the user to type the organization. Here I go on the repository. Here you can see category sales 2. I have access to that because it has been saved on the public folder. And then you will see that the settings will be applied for the brand ADG. Okay, and previously I had multiple colors because the brand Bravo have multiple product category. The brand ADG have only one, which is specialty non-consumable. And here you can see in the selector that you have only the brand ADG. Okay, so that's the interesting things about domains. It's every object created from this domain, and if this domain has security, the object will de facto inherits of the domain security. The domain acts a little bit as a data source if you want, and it's a good way to illustrate that. Okay. So let's, before we go to the slide, sorry, let's have a look to our domain if you want, and see how the domain have this security applied to him. So I will go on the repository, and I will take the sales domain. I'm going to edit this gentleman, and here you recognize, of course, the domain editor, but here in the optional information, I have loaded a file called domain security brands. I can remove it. So if you want to add one, you just click on Add Security File. For convenience, here is the file, and I'm going to show you how this file is structured. So it may look big, but here there is a lot of stuff that are repeated over and over again. So you can pick up one, copy it, and change your own logic. So here, this security definition is always there. And in this security definition, you will define various access grants. So here is the access grant. And here you will list all the grants, but you need to do that per join tree. So here I've got the join tree 1. So if you want, I will show the structure of the domain. And here, if you look at the display of the domain, you can see join tree 1. And here you will have the product class, the store, and the product sales. So here, I'm going to apply the security to this join tree. A domain can contain multiple join tree. I usually don't consider it's a good practice to have multiple join tree in a domain. But here, this is why you must specify the join tree. So now for this join tree, I'm going to list all the security rules I want to apply. And the one we have seen of this demo is this one. Here, the grant list must have an ID that is unique. So here it's called product grants. And the same thing for all the security access grants you have. So here, brand grants. Here you can see the principal expression and the filter expression. The principal expression is the trigger. How do you trigger the security? So if the result of this expression is true, then we will trigger the filtering. So for example, here in the principal expression, we're testing if the tenant ID, so authentication.principal.tenant ID, is different from the organization one, because there is no brand that have organization one inside. And here you've got the filter expression. So if your organization is different than organization one, which is the case for ADG or Bravo, then we will take the product dot brand name object. So this is this one, brand name. So here you can see its full name. Join tree 1 dot product dot brand name. So this is this gentleman. And I just have to type an expression that said take the same brand name as what the tenant ID tells you to. And this may sound a little bit overwhelmingly complex, but indeed it's a very flexible way of working. So once this gentleman is saved, you can go inside the report, add a security file. So here I will choose it from a file, and here I will go to my sample folder and add this gentleman. And I just forgot to take my the location of this file, so just give me 1 second. Samples. Samples and domain security. There it is. So it appears here, and if I submit, this will save my domain, and it performs a check. So if the saving is successful, it means that you have no problem. If you have something wrong in your domain design and in your domain security file design, it will tell you something. So here, a way to test it will be to open this gentleman again, and here you will see the result of the report. Okay, so here is how it performs this this security. So just to summarize, the role-level security is handled via what we call the resource access grant. The principal expression is, as I said, the trigger. So you need to here to identify the user, role, or organization when this grant apply to, for example. And then you have the filter expression. This is what happened when the principal expression is true. It acts as a where clause. And if you look at the query done by your by the domain, then you will see the where clause. And this you can use the DOMIL syntax. And if you use the Groovy functions, you can use as well Groovy functions. And for that, for example, you can access to the currently logged in user and support dynamic filtering as well. So just to show you the result, here you have the ability to view the SQL query, and here you will see the where clause, where brand name in ADG. Okay, if I log out and select another brand, so here we'll take Bravo. You will see that the query will be different as well. So here, take category sales, and the underlying query also have changed. It takes Bravo. So if you want to go further, you have the Jasper Report Server Admin Guide. You have the Community Wiki. You will find a lot of samples in the Community Wiki to help you. Of course, professional services from Jaspersoft and partner can help you implementing that and also extending your security. And if you look at the Supermart domain samples, it have a very good security file on it with plenty of samples. Some of them are commented. If you want to look at them, you can simply uncomment them and look at what's inside of it, and you will find plenty of usage for column level security as well, and various usage of the attributes and tenant ID combinations and roles as well. So here is. So thank you for watching. I hope this tech talk will be useful for you.